Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Live and Give Show. We're your hosts. My name is Maria Coleman.
I'm Jaime Gonzalez, and my wife, she is not with us today. She is in Savannah, Georgia. She's actually in a big real estate conference there. She's a speaker with some really powerful people there. So we'll miss you on this episode. What we're going to talk about today, Maria?
Today, our topic is finding focus and the importance that focus has in every area of your life.
I'm excited about it.
Me too. I am. Jaime, what do you say if we start off the episode talking about an exercise that Tony Robbins tends to employ?
Sounds good.
All right. I don't know if you're familiar with the one that I'm thinking of, and I'm sure you are. He talks about how he makes his audience look out into the room and look for things that are brown. And so the audience will look around and they'll look for objects that are brown, and they'll spend some time doing that. And if you're watching us live today, I encourage you to do that as well. Just look around your room. Do you see maybe a pair of shoes that is brown, an Amazon box that is brown, just anything that you can set your sights upon that is the color brown? And then he proceeds by telling his audience to close their eyes and think of an object that was red. Naturally, you're not going to necessarily think of something that is red because you were so focused on brown. What do you think that he's trying to do there?
And so he's given all the energy to that particular color, right? So if you focus and your energy, like he says, your energy flows to that particular color, you're only going to notice those things, right?
Right.
And that's how our mind actually works, right? So a lot of the times our mind doesn't know what real is, so we talk about subconscious mind. You can feed yourself, positive information, even if it hasn't happened or never happens, but your subconscious mind doesn't know that it's real or not.
Right.
So if we focus on things that are positive, positive things are going to flow because that's where the energy we're focusing on. Right. Yes. So are there things in life that you actually on an everyday basis that you focus on, or tell me a little bit about your routine?
Absolutely. You know what? One of the things that I am a stickler about is the power of words. So when we talk about focus, I'm always super conscious about the words that I use. I listen to the way that my friends and family speak. And if there's something that is not serving them, I tell them to restate that. There's always a way to restate something in a way that is going to speak life into the project that you're working on, or into yourself, or into a relationship. So even if my children say, "Oh, I'm sick," No. You are not sick. You feel sick, possibly, right? Mm-hmm. But it's the power of I am is huge. So for me, the power of words is something that we're very highly focused on.
Yeah, I was just thinking as you were speaking, it's like, no, you're not sick. And I thought of sickness, right? And medication. And in one of I think probably the second episode, we talked about how, I can give you a sugar pill and you can think that you're going to get cured from a certain disease. And about 30% of you are going to get better with the sugar pill or with a fake medication, and that's because you're thinking that you will get better. And, this is, if everyone thought like that, I think it would be quite a bit higher, because your brain is the most powerful pharmacy that you can have. And it's all natural components, right? So, but yeah, focusing, like you were saying, on a daily basis, I mean, that's important. Choosing the correct words, or the positive words, is very important. I try to do that, initially whenever I wake up, right? So the first thing that I'm doing is, prayer, and meditation, and just be in silence. Right. And so my day starts off, on a positive note. Whatever I might be thinking about, later on down the road, that doesn't take precedence. It's usually my positive thoughts my prayer, and then I do my breath work as well at the same time. And then, my gratitude. So there's about 15 minutes of positivity immediately, and then of course, I do my other, stuff for health. But at nighttime, right before bed, I do the same thing, so it's like, I start off my day, not in the morning, but at night.
The night before.
Yeah. So that's how I start off my day. If I don't have a good night, usually I'm not going to have a good morning, right? Because I'm thinking of that night before, right? So usually my days start off in the morning time. Are there any like routines that you do for positivity, or I know you told your kids, don't think that you're sick, but are there any routines that you actually go through?
So meditation is big for me. Meditation, and then feeling like you've done something. So have accomplished, maybe it's movement. For me, it's movement. I've noticed that when I fail to meditate, or if I fail to move my body, there's just a lot of trapped energy. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about emotion being energy in motion. And so if you think about it, if you're sedentary because of your job, maybe it's difficult to actually move around quite a bit, get up and go for a walk. Some of those things can actually impact you because you're not expending that extra energy. I think sometimes that can manifest itself in terms of anxiety or worry. And then the act of meditation, the word meditation, Dr. Joe Dispenza also says that it simply means to become familiar with. And it's amazing. If we have time, I'd like to show a picture. We're into biohacking around here, and I wear my Whoop very, very religiously. And I noticed how one day I just kind of felt out of sorts. There's just a lot of things going on, family troubles and things of that sort. And you just have to try to find some time to quiet your mind. And so I remember I set my Whoop to the meditation, and then I meditated, and there is a feature there that demonstrates your stress levels. So clearly my heart rate was upwards of 120 beats per minute, and it came down to mid 60s within a 20-minute meditation session. Similarly, my stress level was in the high zone, and it came down to a low zone. The problem with not meditating for me is that I tend to be shorter on my patience. It's one of those things that if I don't take that time to process thoughts that are coming up for me, then naturally I will tend to lash out. So for me, those are very important.
Yeah, that as you were talking, it's like I thought about what you said, anxiety, and I've, back then I had suffered from anxiety, and a normal person that doesn't have anxiety, well, I shouldn't even say normal, a person that doesn't have anxiety has about 70,000 thoughts per day. A person that has anxiety has 120,000 thoughts per day. So that is, you're thinking a lot more about what's going to happen or what might happen, or, things that are never going to happen. Right. So again, if you're focusing on things that are not positive and negative, if not positive, but negative, then you're going to get more anxious.
Naturally. Right.
So you are going to be in the 120, 150,000 thoughts per day. And it's just, chemical reactions that happen in your brain. Right. So the focusing, that's very important. How about, in your workplace? How about, once you were kind of getting, started and being successful, what were you thinking about? Were you lasered focused on, a task or a goal? Tell me a little bit about that.
One of the things that I learned early on is how your energy and your willpower are limited. And some people, depending on the kind of person they are, they may find that they're more motivated in the morning and less so in the evening, or vice versa. So I think identifying that was very important for me. So with regards to my work, I tend to find outlets of creativity, and those are so important for me because I feel like I do a lot of my work up here. And the reason that that's important is because that's when I'm able to think outside of the box in terms of how to provide a solution for a problem that I may encounter.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those solutions sometimes come on a walk, or, people say that in the shower, they get some of their best thoughts. I've been known to write on my shower wall ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when it comes to work, being laser focused is absolutely critical. But for me, I also understand what I call the 55-minute rule. It's kind of scientifically proven, and I don't know exactly the technology or the scientific reasoning behind that, but I've heard that after 55 minutes, your level of productivity tends to go down. So I tell myself, hey, I'm going to set my alarm.
55 seconds or
55 minutes. Did I say seconds?
No. Some people it's 55 seconds.
And you know what? If that's the case, then it's okay. That means that they're going to need more of those 55-second sessions, right? But for me, I will set, if I have a task that I need to get done, the power of writing things down, by the way, that's huge, 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 huge. Hi, Angie. I see you joining us live. Good to see you this morning. So the power of writing things down is critical. But once I've written that down, then I will tell myself that I will focus on this task for 55 minutes. I'll set my timer, and 55 minutes goes straight into focusing on that task. You might have heard it said before that the light of the sun burns, but it doesn't burn as much as it would burn if that light was focused. Think about putting a magnifying glass and then just really directing that light of the sun. So for me, that helps a lot. Writing things down, giving it a priority, because sometimes you just need that brain dump. You have so many things going on, and before you know it, if you actually do a brain dump, you can actually see them and then say, okay, this is important, this is personal, this is for work, and you're able to better fix your day that way.
No, that's great. It's like, for example, my wife, Hua, we've talked about it in different episodes. She is not the most organized. I'm the organized person. So I like to write everything down just like you. And so she writes down things that she wants to get laser focused on napkins. So we have a lot of napkins in her drawer, right by where she sleeps, right? So I think for her, from what she's told me, is she writes it down. That puts it into her subconscious mind, what to do or what to be laser focused on for work. And then she's in proximity to whatever she writes down.
That's what, yes.
So it's like, that's how we need to think, right? So it's like, we need to touch it.
Yes.
Every once in a while. We need to revisit it every once in a while. And but I think that's a great strategy. So if someone is not as organized, maybe writing things down on a napkin and put it where you're going to see it, right? So if you're going to brush your teeth in the morning, in the evening time, maybe put it there, right? So I have little green sticky notes. Green means go, right? So for me, and so I have green sticky notes and goals that I want to achieve. So on one of them, I want to purchase like $2 billion of real estate and give at least $2 million for 10 charities. So I see that every day in the morning and in the evening on a green sticky note, and I'm always laser focused on that. I'm always going to see it. But that's one of the little tricks that I have. Maybe I should have some napkins too, like Hua, and
cover all your bases.
Yeah, cover all my bases, and it's weird because, like, I would say maybe 99%, or I don't even want to say 100%, but it's very, very high up there, that whatever she has put on that napkin, it has come true to reality because you're so focused on it, and we look back on those napkins, and she keeps them, by the way. And we look.
I told her she should publish them. I did. I think it would be awesome to publish that.
We look back at those napkins, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that particular goal was too small, right? And we talk about, setting goals, us as a team, and with Hua and a couple other team members, is like because we've been to these other, masterminds and, with some really, really big players and friends that have become friends, that their goals are like massive goals. They're nowhere near, what they're going to accomplish later on down the road. But that makes this thing so much bigger, and just focusing on that and having it in the back of your mind, that's very, very powerful. So writing it down anywhere you can, sometimes I write it on my phone, but I hardly ever look at them, so I can write, 10 things that I want, and I hardly ever go to that list. So, somewhere where you can see it, where you can touch it, where you can feel it, because those are your goals. You want to touch them and feel them and make sure they're attainable, right? But still make them at the same time, make them so far out there, like a moonshot goal, right? And that's what we call them, and make them way out there, because a lot of the times whenever you reach that goal, what's after that?
Right.
Like, I reached my goal. Oh crap, that's not good.
Well, the good thing is that you have more time to set yet another goal. But you're right. I mean, and sometimes those goals are uncomfortable if they're so big, but that's okay.
But I don't think a lot of people actually set more goals.
Do you think they stop where they are?
I think so.
Yeah.
And that's why they don't continue to exponentially grow, right? So you can grow, but not exponentially grow, right? And people that are growing exponentially, they're setting goals way out there. They have multiple goals that they set that are almost unattainable, right? So, and they're always, grinding towards that journey, right? But of course, they're in a space that they might love, so, and some of us are not, right? But it's still focusing. This is all about focusing, right?
Right.
So just focusing on that almost unattainable goal. I think that's important.
Yes, and it will keep you striving and moving forward. If we go back to that Tony Robbins exercise, something that happens when he tells his audience to now think of an item that was red, when remember this entire time that we're focused on the color brown. He says that what will happen almost inevitably, they look around and they might find something that's burgundy. It's not quite red, but in order to feel successful, they will feel like, oh, I see red now. And I think part of that goes to prove that at the end of the day, these are almost self-fulfilling prophecies. What you focus on, you will undoubtedly see more of. And I think part of that is because of the way that our brain is structured. At the back of our brain, we have that reticular activating system. And I think that it's our brain's job to help you identify what it is that you set forth. That's why those lists are so popular. Studies show, and so effective. Studies show that when you write something down, it's almost as if you're giving your brain a blueprint for it to go out and find it. So I'll tell you, for example, when I got my first car, I was the one that I wanted. I actually went online and I went to the build your car option and I printed that out. And then I stuck it on my shelf at work, on my desk. And I remember thinking, man, one day I'll have that car. One day I'll have that car. And it wasn't necessarily something that I wrote down, but I did hand choose things. And lo and behold, a year or two later, I actually had that exact car. I mean, down to the color of the interior and all the things. And I think back because that was my first real tangible experience of something that I really wanted that I ultimately came up with. And people do this with relationships. They have a list of things that they want or standards that they want their relationships to meet. And that seems to be very effective. And I think that that's why it really is your mind at work trying to make sure that it helps you accomplish that thing which you set forth.
Yeah. If I could use one example, kind of almost exactly like yours on, it was probably about, I would say 12 years ago, maybe 13 years ago. And so we had, lived in a house, our first house, and I think we had lived there probably 3 or 4 years. And we had to move a little bit further north because that's where another one of our practices we had just purchased. So we had 2 practices, but it was very far out for us to travel to the practice up north. So I had placed a photo of a house that was my dream house, right? And I probably, had it there for maybe 6 to 8 months. And so we started looking at houses, not to probably 6 months out since I had posted it on the laptop. So we probably visited, a good amount of houses, maybe 15, 20 houses up here on the north side. And I would do the research, and Hua would select the house that she wanted, or whatever she wanted to have. I do the research, right? And she just goes in there by gut feeling. Yes. She's like, yes, this is it. No, this is not it. And same thing with like other big things. She goes, and I trust like 100% her gut feeling because it is very good. And so I had, selected, 3 or 4 houses for that particular day. And she walked in there and it was like probably 30 seconds. She's like, this is it. I'm like, are you sure? You haven't even looked at the rest of the house. And she's like, yes, this is it. 100%. So I looked at my laptop probably, a month after I put 2 and 2 together. It's like, oh my God, this random picture that I looked in the internet, I don't know where that house was. It looked almost exactly like the house that she had selected. And she had seen it multiple times in my laptop, but she was probably in her subconscious mind. She had something that she liked, and she probably liked, what she saw on my laptop. But I think she was focused. And the house looks not like a normal house. It's more like, something from Spain, Mediterranean style house. So it was very, very different. But yeah, she was in her subconscious mind. She already knew what she liked, and she selected. I was like, oh my God, we always go back and say, yeah, you're going to focus on that. Yeah. Are you going to be more, prone to kind of select that item? Same thing with like work. It's like whenever we were practicing for about 10 years or so. And whenever we selected, okay, we have to go into real estate somehow, and we want to make sure and master this asset class of real estate. The focus was on being successful in that particular asset class. And within, just a few years, we became extremely successful in that asset class just because we were so focused in it, and we were able to hire great help for our practices with doctors and staff, but we were laser focused on what we wanted to accomplish, and something that we had never, dealt with before in like apartment complexes, right? So, but yeah, it is very, very powerful. What you can do in a very short period of time, and especially if you're learning from other people that have mastered it in the past, not someone that has dabbled into it, right? So, because we've learned that usually doesn't work, right? So you have to learn from, hire the best, learn from the best. And then that's part of the exponential growth, right? If you want to exponentially grow, you have to compress that time compared to, that particular person, has had experience 10, 15, 20, 30 years.
Right. And that is probably stemming from that goal that you set forth, that you wrote down, that you were intentionally
She put it on a napkin. She was like, I want to achieve by, and she was very specific, right? We talk about specific setting goals, and you're really good at doing that. And so you're like, okay, well, you have to set a time, you have to set an amount, you have to set, with who, and all these things, the more detailed you get with your goal, the more you can almost touch it and feel it.
Yes.
Right.
And that proximity, it is so important. Ed Milet talks about when he was back living when he was broke and he and his wife were struggling financially, he would still go and walk through the halls of these nice and fancy hotels, or he would drive through the hills where ultimately he wanted to live. And he speaks to how just that proximity really helped. And ultimately, I mean, now that's where he lives. I encourage you to take some things away from our episode today. If you have never tried it before, maybe you think writing things on paper is outdated. Well, let me tell you what, it's even in the Bible. I think there's a verse in Habakkuk that talks about writing it on tablets so that anyone who passes by can see that. And I remember one time I was doing one of my devotionals and that came up and I thought, whoa, that's even in the Bible, how you're supposed to write these things down. And sometimes it's in an effort to accomplish a goal. Sometimes it's in an effort to just rid your brain of all of this excess minutia that is in the way of you accomplishing your goal. It's funny that you talked about Post-it notes because I use Post-it notes as well. I call it my time blocking system. And what I do is I just sit down if I'm overwhelmed, even after a meditation, if I'm overwhelmed, I'll just take a stack of Post-it notes and a black Sharpie. For some reason, those are the two things that work for me. And I'll write a single thought on each, a black Sharpie, but the color of the Post-it notes do not have to matter, but they all have to be the same. And I'll tell you why. It's like that one session. That one session is like a brain dump of that one session. But the purpose of the Post-it notes, it's almost like to see my thoughts on paper. And this is the cool thing about that is that as soon as I write down a thought on paper, that Post-it note gets put to the side. Next thought gets put to the side. And now I can categorize them. Almost like a Kanban board, if you guys are into agile methodology. But if you take all of those that are similar, so I'll take all of the things, maybe there's some fundraisers at school or some project sponsorships, things that sort that we'll put them together. Maybe it's something, maybe I'm trying to organize a project at my home or something work related, but they're all jumbled in my brain. So now that I've put them all on Post-it notes, they're categorized. And then I'll go through each of the stacks and I'll write down how long it's going to take. Many of those are like 5-minute tasks. You know, a lot of those, it's like sending that email or making that one phone call, but it's still just stuck in your brain on this never-ending loop. So that's the way that I use them. And then there's that satisfaction, almost like of crossing it through on your to-do list. When I'm done with that, I take that little Post-it note, I crumble it up and it goes in the garbage. So now it's amazing though, how it just relieves your brain of so much of that pressure when you're doing that.
Okay. Interesting. You know, whenever you said you kind of crumble it up and throw it away, there's other things that I kind of do with imaginary with thoughts, right? Because for me, it's like thoughts are pictures in my brain that if I have had. This is one of the meditations. I think it's there's a lot of different meditations, of course, but I think this is a Korean-based meditation that if you focus on a certain memory, and it's a picture that comes up in your brain, and taking that picture, whatever it is, it can be positive or negative. Positive. I was very surprised when they say positive, but you take that picture and you crumble it and you burn it. So imagine a fire and you just burning that picture. It's not to erase the memory, it's to erase the emotion that memory carries with you, whether is a bad memory or whether it's a good memory, right? Because our brain can only take so much emotion, right? So it's almost like a cleansing that you do with all the emotions that you have in your brain. And then you go through it from the earliest memory that you can think of, maybe 4 or 5 years old, but then you go to 5, 6, 7, 8, up until you're however old you are. But that's a good cleanse. And, you know, the first time that I did that meditation, it took me an hour and a half because there were so many emotions that were in my brain that most of them were not serving me well. And some of them were serving me, but a lot of them were not. And that's where a lot of, people with anxiety struggle with, or depression, because people that have, depression, they usually think of past memories. Usually people with anxiety, they think of like the future, emotions, right? So, but having this cleansing, with this meditation, I started to feel more at peace, right? And because you have to make, room for more emotions. Man, I still got 120 years to live, right? So, and we'll come up with this, health episode. It will be, pretty intensive, but the technology that they have right now and their research is pretty strong. So, I have another 120 years to live, right?
That's right.
So I used to say, I'm aiming for 120, but I'm going to have to up it a little bit more. But yeah, it's just that cleansing, focusing on cleansing your mind and making room for more emotion, right?
Yeah, and more really great things that you really do deserve in life. As you were speaking, I was thinking about what Lysa TerKeurst says. She's actually the author of a book called Forgiving What You Can't Forget, and she has a new one also called Boundaries and Goodbyes. But one of the things that she talks about those events, for example, is how in order to heal from something, you have to feel something so that you can actually deal with it, right? So heal, feel, and deal. And that can come in many different forms. Maybe it's something that you have to actually go and have a conversation with someone, or maybe it's that exercise where you, in a solo session, you actually bring that to your mind. You can really heal anything if you just revisit it. There's a lot of scientific evidence that backs that as well. And it's so amazing that we always come back to the mind. We come back to the power of the mind. And I want us to include something in that fitness episode, because we have to go with the F word. I want us to include something in terms of the way that the mind processes pain. And I think there's an awesome episode that I'll share by Huberman and Mackey. They were just discussing pain and how a lot of it is in our brain. So it's fascinating. And I think that the world that we live in allows for us to really have all kinds of information at our fingertips. But the stickler is it's what you focus on. It's what you focus on 100%. In fact, you don't know this, but earlier today, as we started the episode, I thought, oh, I don't know if I turned my phone off. My phone, for those of you that know me, you know that my phone never rings. It's always on silent, whether I'm at home, whether I'm at work, whether I just don't like the sound that a ringing phone makes. I also use the haptics on my Whoop because I don't like the sound of an alarm clock. It's one of those jarring things. So as we started the podcast, I thought, I don't know that I turned my phone off. My phone is going to ring. My phone is going to ring. And lo and behold, did my phone not ring? I totally was focused on that. And that's exactly what came to pass. I'm not trying to say that couldn't just be a coincidence. Absolutely. But we all know that what we focus on eventually finds its way to us. Sharon Lechter, in one of her awesome speeches, she left me really impacted by this. And think about it this way. She said that when you worry, it's like you're praying for that negative outcome. When she said that, I was taken aback because, we always think about how thank you so much. I see you guys on the live agreeing with that. And how powerful a statement of that. The next time that you choose to worry on something, which by the way, statistics show that 80% of the time, that doesn't even come true. I mean, the likelihood of the positive outcome coming true is higher than the negative outcome coming true, but we spend most of our time, it's that Pareto rule. We spend most of our time focusing on the negative outcome and it doesn't even come to pass. I mean, in many cases, Lord God, thanks for that. But when she said that, I was flabbergasted because I thought, how much power are you giving it? Your mind is a powerful tool. So if only you were to switch it on and focus on what it is that you want to happen. And that is a simple switch of the power of words. Instead of saying something else, affix it to where you're focusing on the positive outcome that you really want to see come through.
Yeah. And, just to follow that up, I mean, I've experienced that myself, so if I'm focusing on something not positive that might happen, my heartbeat starts to race very, very quickly, like within 10 seconds. I can hear my heartbeat because I wear earplugs at nighttime. So if I'm thinking something's not going to happen correct at work, or this is going to happen, I automatically hear my heart beating very, very quickly. Of course, my blood pressure is elevated at the same time. And then my cortisol stress hormone is higher. Whenever your stress hormone increases, then your melatonin levels go down, and then I can't sleep, right? So that's just a little bit of the, biology, right? Physiology of what happens. But just quickly focusing on something negative, it releases chemicals in your brain that make your body and your mind not perform as it should perform at whatever time. So it's and also too, you talked about pain, and there are studies that, again, if we focus, the placebo effect is very, very powerful. If you give someone a pain pill, which is, there's no pain medication, their pain reduces immensely by just telling them this will reduce your pain. And that's why I'm telling you guys, it's like your brain is the most powerful pharmacy that you can have. I know a lot of people, online take a lot of medication, but there are ways that you can actually make your body heal naturally by just focusing on the right things that we need to focus on. And of course, we got to get a little bit healthier overall, because, some hormones are released because we're not healthy, but little by little, that'll make a very powerful effect by just kind of focusing on ourselves and our mind instead of anything out there.
Right. Just kind of bring that focus in. And I see Jennifer Guerra, you're joining us as well. Welcome to this week's show. Earlier, we were also talking about, aside from the placebo effect, just the fact that if we take ourselves outside of our body per se, when you're doing a meditation, I've heard it said once that when you're meditating, it's almost as if your subconscious is asleep, but your mind is super awake. When you're sleeping, it's like your body is asleep, but your mind is still awake. And so the power of meditation is huge. Emily Fletcher speaks about how you can actually tune into your body. She's a founder of Ziva Meditation, but she is, I say, a pioneer in the sense that when she's taking you through a meditation, she actually kind of asks you to do a body scan. And if you think about it in this way, if you focus your energy and your attention and your breath on the part of the body that is actually, we'll call it in pain, or maybe just a little uncomfortable, before you know it, just by simply giving your body that attention, it starts to dissipate. And then you move on to something else. Maybe you have a little crick in your neck, or maybe there's something that's a little tinge in your knee, something like that. But I encourage you to try that. Just your body is trying to tell you something. So just take a minute and acknowledge your body. Thank it for what it's doing. Thank it for the fact that it carries you throughout the day. Anything you put it to, it will actually do that work. And so we encourage you to find ways to find focus in whatever it is that you want to happen. And those things that we cannot control, they're out of our control. And we should leave it that way. It's unfortunate that we have those events. But the more that you can stay within yourself and become an observer of your thoughts, the more that you can control the things that are actually within your control.
I think, I think that's great. I think probably just some homework, right?
Yeah.
So I think we've given homework, in other episodes. It's you want to have the focus on something extremely big that is, a goal, or a feeling or an emotion, but just have it posted somewhere, somewhere, again, where you can feel it, touch it, see it multiple times a day. And then maybe because we do that with Athena as well, so it's like she has little sticky notes, or I told her, create the top 20, things that you feel that you are, right? So are you, creative? Are you happy? Are you giving? So some of those things she already knows and can focus on those, top 20 things. So I would, if you have kids, I would focus, also on the kids, because a lot of the times they're going to mirror you, right? So, but that's probably going to be the homework. Create something, whether it's a napkin, a Post-it, on your phone, if you can put it on, as soon as you log into your phone, that you can actually have something super positive that you can have. My alarm, whenever my alarm goes off, I have a few sayings because I have multiple alarms, right? So whenever I wake up, time getting ready for bed, or if I have, a meeting or a Zoom or something like that, and like it has you can put little phrases on it instead of just, wake up, you're very powerful, you're very creative. Let's do this, so just continuing to feed your mind just positivity and greatness, because that's what we focus on a lot too, being great, not just for yourself, but others and in your community and your staff. And but yeah, I think that would be some homework to kind of give our audience here.
I agree. And I think if you struggle with that, just talk to someone that's close to you. Sometimes we can't see the greatness that is within us, but other people are sure to. And I'm sure that you are able to see greatness in others. Sometimes we just need that little nudge, a little reminder of that. So today's episode, we focused on focus. We gave you some strategies on possibly finding focus. Jaime speaks a lot about having these moonshot goals, having these goals that are uncomfortably big, and that's okay because you're ultimately going to take steps to get there. And one of those ways that you can do that is to set aside the things that are in your way. You're always going to have obstacles, but if you have modalities, maybe a meditation or maybe therapy with someone, or maybe it's just those simple Post-it notes to just do a brain dump. What's really important? Where's my focus? Where's my priority? Maybe consider something like time blocking where you're doing that 55 minutes of just focused work and then feel refreshed about that. What else did we share in terms of modalities that people can leverage? Well, the power of thought. I mean, the power of thought and the power of words. That is so huge. So today, we encourage you today. We think that you're awesome. If you have a problem finding something great about you, just lost it. So I think that's it for today.
Thank you so much for joining us. And, we try to bring this show to you guys and offer, value for you tuning in. So we're usually here on Mondays at 11 a.m. Central Time. And hopefully Hua can join us on the next one. We wish her well in Savannah, Georgia. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys soon.